Hello again, Rick Miracle here with a continuation of the series Freemasonry and Satanism, number 57, part 3 of Flying Serpents and Dragons. So I thought I'd start out by reviewing the back of this book. The circle with the snake and the wings seems to be a predominant symbol in the ancient Egyptian, Middle Eastern, and other areas of the world, from the Mayans to the Nordics, Thor and Odin, and religions in China, India. The serpent, the sun, the wings, over and over and over. Why? What is the history of mankind, and what does that have to do with Freemasonry and Satanism? Well, I think Satan was described as a snake in the Garden of Eden who gave Eve the apple, which she shared with Adam, and both of them had some kind of change, mental or physical, I don't know, both. Anyways, they had to cover up themselves with fig leaves because they realized they were naked. So according to the theory that maybe mankind was made by these creatures, snake creatures, reptilians. You can see this one here is an ancient monument or image holding a baby. Can you imagine these creatures mating with womankind 9,000–10,000 years ago? So let's see what the back of this book says. Worldwide legends refer to the giant flying lizards and dragons which came to this planet, founded the ancient civilization of Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, and China. Who were these alien reptilian creatures? What it says there. Flying Serpents and Dragons provides the answers and solves many of the mysteries of the ancient history, such as, what is the real meaning of the missing link? Because as we all know, it seems that intelligent humans and humanity as we know it, starting right around the Egyptian Empire, plus or minus years there, and other parts of the world, sprang out of nowhere after the Great Flood. Where was the ancient paradise land of Dimor located? What was the role of the gigantic stone platform at Baalbek in Lebanon, which is exactly north of Israel, where they are having warring and threats of more war? And Lebanon and Israel have had previous wars. And I suspect because of all these ancient monuments and ancient sites of the gods that were here, which seems to be the cult of the New Age religion, the New Age. And freedom probably isn't working well for these creatures. So they probably think they could do better off by re-enslaving the planet, maybe? What were the crystals dragons supposedly fought over? What actually were the ancient boats of heaven, of Egypt, and the sky chariots in the Bible? How did the ancients communicate with each other? What is the origin of the legend of the phoenix bird? Flying Serpents and Dragons also solves many of the puzzles of the Old Testament. Why was Noah so angry when seen naked by his sons? Did he have some scaly residues from the DNA on his chest or something? Or a tail even? What was really meant by the weakness of the flesh and the badge of priesthood. Again, was there something when you were naked, if your reptilian DNA was still showing? What was the real nature of the horrible crime of Cain against Abel? Was Cain, who was the son of maybe an alien, and the human Eve, a different kind of creature than Adam, who was born of Eve, and the human created Adam, the second son of Eve? And did the reptilian older son was jealous of the younger son? Cain slew Abel in the Bible. Just trying to make sense here. I suppose that's why people write these books. But I wonder, though, are they writing these books for a nefarious purpose? Are they trying to lead us down a path of even a more false belief maybe than the false beliefs we have? I know, and a lot of other people know, and we've seen in the Freemasonic books there, the pamphlets, and other books that non-Masons are called profane. The Zionist Jewish folks call us goyim and cattle. And we're not even considered living, intelligent beings if you're not part of these people's groups, the reptilian groups, and the Freemasonic groups, or the Jewish groups. Go to the Jerusalem Post. Read some of the press releases and then go read the comment section. And they say that. They laugh at us being Christians and buying toys for the kids from their factories. They think it's hilarious. Stuff you learn by reading. Who were the Nephilim who descended from heaven and mated with human women? Were that these things? Were these the Nephilim? And of course, I like to have my little picture show here. But a lot of people, a lot of videos on YouTube, David Icke including, there are many people out there who say that there are changelings and shapeshifters among us. And humans can come in and out of their, if you pay attention to them, you can see their eye teeth are like fangs and their eyes switch to a slit if you look at these videos. Why did the serpent god get a bum rap in history? Why indeed? If they were the kings and queens of history, ruling the people with mass murder and mayhem throughout history, I would tend to give them a bum rap, you think? And when they continued to remarry and interbreed, did they lose their reptilian DNA features? Is that why the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Morgan Chases, the bloodlines of the Illuminati, the rich elites, royalty, kings and queens, like to intermarry? Because supposedly the higher strength or the originality of the DNA, the purity, the increase in psychic powers they have. Well, who destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah and why? What was the real shape of the Ark of Noah? Who were the warrior class of giants or Raphael of the ancient Palestine? And who really was Moses? And where was Mount Sinai located? This is a first-class detective story, a truly original work of scholarly research. It deals a shattering blow to all our preconceived notions about our past and origins. Well, reading that says it a whole lot better than I could have said it. So I'm going to try to scoot through this third and last part book review video, Freemasonry and Satanism, Fighting Serpents and Dragons by R.A. Boulay. So let's go. This ought to be an interesting little trip here to Chapter 3. Physical conditions before the deluge. So, the Great Flood, documented by civilizations, Mayans, cultures, peoples, the Hopis out west, the American Indians, documented by worldwide, the Great Flood. All right, says here on page 51, it is in this moist climate that the Anunnaki arrived to exploit the Earth's resources. They were a sapient reptilian race and found conditions here very congenial to their existence, for it approximated those of their home planet. So I thought about that for a second, and we discussed the younger years where something crazy happened on Earth, and this was the average temperature down here on the bottom for a number of years. 20 to 15, that's 5,000 years, it shows you, of average temperature. Then this event happened, right here. And then the average temperature is where it is now for the last 10 so thousand years. So something dramatic happened to planet Earth to go from an average temperature here to this new average here. So they did talk about prior to this, you really couldn't see the sun. The sky was full of fog, humidity, moist. And then after the event, comet striking the Earth, pole shift, I don't know. The younger, drier years, but you can see, another chart, the average temperature changed. This is Greenland. So maybe that's one reason why these races moved to a place where you wouldn't move to today, the desert Middle East. Maybe it was different back then. The Garden of Eden. So that's what it says in this book. So prior to the flood, things were different on the planet. It says here, the dense cloud cover and vapor canopy would mean that blue sky was not seen by the ancients until after the deluge. And now they're talking about the return of Nibiru, which I was watching a video today on YouTube. And they talk about these Anunnaki who had managed to hollow out a planet or something and have a relocatable planet that they could steer. Who knows? But they do say, and there have been YouTube and websites and books that we've gone over, threatening that this planet Nibiru, Planet X, the Destroyer. Are these the destroyers? Are these the destroyers? Have they always been here and they're under the disguise and live in their palaces and get caught once in a while in their reptilian skin? But they're threatening now that the younger, drier years are going to come again. Please help. Here comes the younger Dryas, where the Ice Age, the sheets of ice, a mile high, 10 miles high, I don't know, came all the way down past the Great Lakes in the United States, down into the USA. Anyways, that's what's in the book here. The reptiles verily descend. The earth is resplendent as a well-watered garden prior to the deluge. At that time, Enki and Eridu had not appeared. Daylight did not shine. Moonlight had not emerged. So you didn't have any moonlight if you couldn't see the blue sky. Probably couldn't see stars. Although the surface of the earth was shielded from the direct rays of the sun, plant life was rich and abundant due to the protection of carbon dioxide, of carbon dioxide to that of water vapor in the atmosphere. The amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was probably many times higher than it is today. So they're worrying about carbon dioxide increasing today, i.e. there's claims of global warming. But here it was greater, and it caused a more of a paradise, garden of Eden, planetary green growth and everything. Two climatologists, Owen Toon and Steve Olson, in their article on The Warm Earth in Science, October 1985, maintained that the early atmosphere of the Earth may have contained as much as 1,000 times more carbon dioxide than it does today. So if carbon dioxide is increasing, it looks like we're going to wind up with a more beautiful and abundant planet, according to what I'm reading here. Anyways, both religious and secular sources indicate that man and the serpent gods living among them were the vegetarian and not meat eaters. So prior to the deluge, the flood, man was a vegetarian. According to Genesis, man did not eat flesh until after the deluge. This was not true of the Nephilim or Anunnaki. And when they mated with humans, apparently their offspring were giants, which would have been called the Nephilim. So the Nephilim and the Anunnaki, who turned to eating the flesh of animals and eventually that of humans. So they were eating people. And they could open up a whole chain of human meat restaurants across the universe with all the people on planet Earth right now. What a scary thought. Hey, 7 billion people. Let's open up a factory. People burgers across the galaxy. Little humor there. Let's hope that's not the case. I don't make the pictures. I just go on the internet and search reptilians, images, aliens, images. The dissection of the Earth may have been partly caused by the numerous catastrophes of the period, earthquakes or other natural catastrophes in the antediluvian period that often alluded to in the religious literature as well as the Sumerian myths. Earthquakes and other natural catastrophes were not unknown to early man, for they are mentioned in the many ancient sources, both religious and secular. So when I read the book on the Hopis and the ones about the Mayans, they did describe cataclysmic events and aliens who apparently wanted to keep some humans alive. So they built underground facilities and directed these Hopis and Mayan and Peruvians and probably people all over the world into shelters from an expected cataclysmic event. I wonder, if the Earth didn't have a tilt, would that change the temperature to be different with a canopy of fog over it, not having the seasons? And did these creatures bring the moon, a movable body hollowed out in space, which caused the tilt of Earth, created the seasons, and changed the Earth climate forever? Just a thought of mine. Plausible. Alright, so because the change was expected, they built the underground facilities as documented by all the ancient peoples all over the world. That's not a theory or anything. That's a fact documented by the cultures. From South America to India to American plains. mountains, east, west. Alright, so the source of the Hebrew oral tradition refers to the period of calamities that occurred in the generation of Enosh, second only after Adam, when the earth was beset by 4 revolutions in nature. 4 revolutions in nature, presumably a reference to major earthquakes, perhaps caused by a shift of the earth and the earth on its axis. Again, did somebody bring a moon along, put it in orbit, which they claim now has a civilization on the side we can't see? Lots of videos on YouTube. True or not, I don't know. It seems like some seriously dedicated people are saying it's true. It seems that the axis of the earth, page 58, had been displaced 4 times. For the sun was said by them to have changed its usual position, twice rising in the west and twice in the east. So when you have pole shifts, does the earth reverse its spin? And another thing, you know, are these events expected? Do the powers that be, Freemasonry and Satanism, the Freemasons having secrets and controlling much of the world, and the scientists and the military and the politicians, and their religion is Luciferian religion, hence Freemasonry and Satanism. And Satan was described as the snake, the reptilian, and this is about flying serpents and dragons. And the monuments are all over the world of these buildings. So there's something going on, and I'm digging the little information I can, book by book, trying to find out what's going on. Anyways, moving on, 58 page. The sun's eccentric behavior is also found in the Hebrew oral tradition, which affirms that in the era before the deluge, the laws of nature were suspended. The sun rose in the west and set in the east. The century just before the deluge must have been one of many natural catastrophes that were a forerunner of the major one to come. Again, why are they building underground facilities for themselves? And all kinds of other preparations of our police and military to apparently have to defend themselves or wage an oppressive war on the people, like they're trying to remove the guns and give us a new religion, a one-world religion, as said by even the Pope recently, who had a big meeting with a lot of other religious leaders all over the world and said there's no reason for us to have different churches. We should all unite now that we know that there's no reason for us to be separate anymore. Go look that up. Pope, one world religion, uniting the churches. What has he learned? What do they know? Is it the biblical thing, the mark of the beast, the satanic god, Antichrist? Subsequent statements in Genesis does not support such an arbitrary lifespan. After the deluge, the descendants of Noah lived longer than the limit of 120 years. Shem lived to be 600, his son to 483, his son to 433, and so on down to Abraham, who died at the ripe old age of 175. Isaac lived to be 180. So this whole change in the Earth's atmosphere and all this other stuff, I wonder if it had something to do with the aging of humans, or was it they were reptilian creatures who had longer lifespans, and the more that they diluted with the humans mating, did that change their lifespan? I'm a critical thinker. I ask questions. I don't just read and pass on. I like to have some plausible, possible solutions to what's going on and what's real. Alright, here we go. 59. Ancient rabbinic literature, for example, relates how Noah had been informed of the coming catastrophes 120 years before. Wow, he learned of the coming catastrophe 120 years earlier. We people right now on Earth are being warned With the sky spraying, HARP transmitters, the warring in the Middle East, the legislation, laws changed in the U.S., people losing their homes and their jobs, and the jobs shipped to China, communist China, World War I, World War II. We can read, most people, a lot of people, can read the writing on the wall. Something is amiss. 120 years and told to extort the people to amend their ways. In other words, the 120 years was one of probation, when man was given the choice of avoiding destruction by the changing of his ways. So was some creatures out there, or God, not happy with the way man behaved and caused the destruction on earth? Maybe by moving the moon, or adding a moon, or controlling the planet with the HARP systems they have today? They got these HARP systems strategically located all over the planet. Far be it from me to think that they could make the Earth change its pole with changing the polarity of the magnetic energy around the Earth. Can they? Would they? It costs a lot of money to build and maintain these HARP ionosphere heaters. And somebody's messing with the weather. So we've been down this path. We don't have to keep going there. But something is amiss now. We're being warned now. Noah was warned back then. The Hopis were warned. The Mayans were warned. They built underground facilities. Apparently, whatever the creatures were, they wanted to keep some humans alive for after the deluge, the flood, to get back to the mining that they've done all over the world, Africa, South America, North America, and the Middle East, of gold and other minerals, supposedly to fly by spaceship back to their planet, possibly Nibiru. A similar warning is pronounced in the Slavonic Apocalypse of Enoch, also called the second book of Enoch, but here the warning is given to Methuselah instead of Noah, who is told to warn the people to mend their ways in view of the fact that the destruction of the earth draws near. Makes you wonder, you know, I grew up Roman Catholic Christian, you know, so learned about the 10 Commandments. Don't steal, don't kill, don't do adultery, don't covet, don't bear false witness, one God, no idols. And why did they not want idols? Were these some kind of gods and they didn't want idols, stone figurines made up to look like these things? These are not my theories, that's what other people have said. I suppose, and there have been figurines and pictures and paintings made with creatures that look like this. Guess you would think that they would want to keep themselves disguised if they looked like that, wouldn't you? Might scare your kids or their kids. Alright, the second book of Enoch tells of a period of chaos just before the deluge. Are they expecting a period of chaos on earth now? When society broke down and when peoples and nations waged war against each other. In the Atrashic epic, I can't even say the word, Atrahas epic, the Babylonian account of the deluge, man is afflicted with plagues and other pestilence just before the disaster. Interruptions in the flows of water and from the mountains caused the Mesopotamian plains to become salty and unproductive. So before the flood there was chaos and earthquakes and other devastations. Anyways, the last page of chapter 3 here, page 60. The Eden of the Bible had become a brackish, desolate plain. According to the epic, living conditions had become unbearable, and there was mass starvation, disease became rampant, and the survivors had to resort to cannibalism. Oh my. Can you imagine? I mean, 2015, February 7th today. If you watch the news and look at the videos on YouTube and websites and books like this, if they crash the stock market and dollar, and the U.S. and the world system collapses, and the supermarkets, you can't just go down there, no matter how much money you have, and go down to the supermarket and buy some food. How many people know how to live off the land? And I wonder if 7 billion people could live off the land. I think not, of course. Would they start resorting to cannibalism? Is this why the governments want to take away the guns? And why are they sky spraying everybody with all the chemicals that are polluting our systems, our human bodies, as well as the earth and the animals and fishes and birds, which are dying and falling from the skies or washing up on the shores of beaches? Is somebody trying to take the food, resources away, so when this happens there is no food and resources for people to survive and linger on? A dwindling food supply was not the only problem. There was one of overpopulation as well. Well, it makes me a little suspect about the guy who wrote this book. Are they going to use that as another excuse in 2015 or 16? Which people are prophesizing, websites are out there, books are out there. It's all crazy. That's why I read the books and review everything and research everything, trying to find out. So where we left off on the last video, part 2, was this Nexus magazine. Recent issue I got. Norse mythology and the Anunnaki. Which I thought it was kind of convenient that I got that. Look at the picture of the Norse god there in the background behind the words. So it was kind of fortuitous that I got this. I order them once a year. They don't sell Nexus anymore in the United States. Allegedly, that I've been told, because of the mind control issues they put in these magazines. Somehow they got barred from being sold in the United States at Books A Million and the other bookstores. So I've been told. The facts, I'm not sure of. Nevertheless, once a year I ordered them from Australia. Anyways, Norse mythology is a collection of beliefs and stories shared by the northern Germanic tribes in what is mostly now Scandinavia. Cylinder seal depicting Iana overcoming the trapped Marduk with Enki right, Enlil far right, and Enki's second son Nagazinda left. So they left these tablets that supposedly Zacharias Stitchin and others have translated. And the theory is that the warring between the different clans of these Anunnaki and I suppose after they interbred with humans, this is what they looked like. Or maybe they were, these are the Nephilim, so they were giants. Maybe they were shapeshifters, and they were really these things. Shape-shifting into what they wanted to be, like the Queen here is supposedly done, according to David Icke and many others, and a lot of the elites in the world are actually changelings, shapeshifters. Fascinating stuff. So anyways, some of them left the Middle East because of leadership arguments. One of the buildings, Temple of Ishtar, maybe, or the Temple for Marduk. And you can see the silhouettes, the images on the buildings. The Prose Edda is one of two Old Norse compilations put together in Iceland in the early 13th century. The Prose Edda was a compilation. It can be gathered from the prose that there were considered to be slightly fewer than 300 gods and goddesses worshipped by the ancient Norse people in what is now Scandinavia. The description of the chief god Odin fits almost exactly with the Sumerian description of Enki. Enki was described as the one who mixed their DNA with the existing animals, humans/animals on planet Earth to make the human race you see today as slaves to do their mining. But apparently these alien creatures found some of the women, the Earth women, to be quite attractive. Look at that guy's head on the dragon. And had sex with them, which caused a lot of disruption in the various factions of those families, according to this stuff. One brother ended up killing the other in jealousy over the rise of prominence under Marduk. Although the two stories, Norse and Sumerian, of the causes of bad blood are somewhat different, the similarity is that in both stories, the underlying cause is a goddess wife spreading suspicion and strife in support of her own rise to power. This could well explain the stories of Ensur and Vinar, tribes of gods quarreling and warring in later times. Thor was the eldest son of Odin, which is the correct lineage of Marduk. He is said to have a tendency to act first and think later, which often got him into trouble. Another similarity, tendency of Marduk. So this author, Thomas Ashmore, 2013. That's his story. There's more here. Physical evidence. More pictures. We see the wings and the circle. The comparisons. And the stone monuments all over the world, like Stonehenge, which were apparently some kind of power resources to them. More pictures here. Conclusion. I'm going to just jump this over here. What started as an exile for transgressions against their own kind became the beginning of a pre-Viking and northern Germanic tribes of existence with the living gods. Thomas Ashmore has spent at least 35 years as a military specialist, intelligent analyst. Well, there's some credentials there. That's why I read the books and do these videos and read from the books, because I want people to see where the information comes from. And then, of course, I throw in my own 2 cents. After reading this many books, well over 100, hundreds of magazines, thousands of videos, thousands of press releases, 10 years worth of research. From 2005, when I discovered sky spraying and started asking questions about what's going on the planet, to now 2015, 10 years. So what I have discovered, and I did a little homework, is there's more evidence in the Nexus magazines. This issue here Bones of giant humans found in Iraq. This is 2013, September, August. But there was one article in this magazine in the Twilight Zone section. There looks like Inky there. No, Enlid. Enlid's the one with the bow and arrow. So I saw this. I thought I would review it. Ancient artifacts found in Erbil, Iraq. And if you've been paying attention with archaeology, you know that going into Iraq, besides the oil, and certainly not for weapons of mass destruction, and certainly not for being the culprits of 9/11, but I suspect it's part of a larger plan of retaking of all those lands for the ancient Anunnaki reptilians returning, maybe, as is said in many videos. Is this a preparation for a new world order, new one world religion with serpent, Luciferic, satanic worship? Do these people want to come out of the closet? Are they going to say, yes, we're the serpents. We've been operating in secrecy, but we're back. And we need to get all of the, we're looking for some artifacts and some special things in the Middle East that we left behind. Is that what's going on? Anyways, a team of archaeologists working in eastern Erbil, Providence, Iraq, has found dozens of historic artifacts which date back to the 5th millennium BC, 7,000 years ago, which you can see on this chart would be about here, up here. So here we are having all this chaos and anarchy in Iraq, and we got archaeologists digging all around. Something's amiss there. What's the priority here? Why are all the digging in Syria, Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, the retaking of the Ukraine, which is the historic homeland of the Khazars, the country and nation where the king changed the religion to Jewish religion, Hebrew religion, many years ago? So they're really not Jews, the Khazars. Is this the Rothschilds, the bloodlines of the Illuminati? Are they part of these reptilian races controlling the world behind the scenes? So they're digging for archaeology, having digs all over Iraq, in the midst of all the murder and mayhem. That's a little suspicious to me. What's going on? Was all the murder and mayhem and the wars fabricated, the reasons, so that they could go into this country and get all of the facilities and artifacts and museums and oil and everything else, and eliminate the people? Seems they don't have any bones about killing people for thousands of years. I'm reminded of the American Indians where they got $10 a scalp, or the buffalo out west in the USA where they paid to have them all killed. And I guess the evidence was is you left the buffalo there on the plain, on the field, and cut out the tongue, and that was your evidence that you'd killed the buffalo, and you could collect on it. Who's doing this? Who's operating behind the scenes that would do something so insane as to kill all the buffalo just to get rid of them? The discovery was made after 2 months of hard work and excavations at the Gurdi Nada historic site east of Erbil City by local archaeologists and teams from Athens University. So somebody with some serious money put these people onto this and paid them. Why? What are they looking for? What is at these historic sites? The Ark of the Covenant? Indiana Jones kind of stuff? Hitler was into this. He was sending people all over the world. He was in touch with the higher beings, so they say, masters, and getting the technologies for flying saucers and other technologies. There seems to be more going on here than we know. Hence why I do this book reviews and this research. Haydar Hassan of the Archaeology Department said at a press conference in Erbil that the items found at the site date back to 3 different eras, with some of them dating back to 55 BC, 4000 BC, and 2000 BC. So that would have been 7,500 years ago, 6,000 years ago, and 4,000 years ago. After the Great Flood. The excavations also revealed some brick walls and clay structures that show industrial development in this area. Now remember, with all these technologies, with the satellites in space, I suspect they can X-ray the ground and already know where many of these missing cities are, and can direct the archaeologists right to the locations they want them to dig in, after they incinerated in shock and awe all of the troops of Iraq. I'll never forget that. I mean, the insanity of it. Columns of troops moving to their border to protect their country, and along come the NATO USA planes and burn them all alive. If there's a God, and I believe there is, there's going to be hell to pay for the people responsible for doing that. The excavations also revealed some brick walls, clay structures that show industrial development in the area. There are pieces of pottery that date back to the Assyrian era, around 2000 BC, as well as 16 sculptures of animals that are made from clay. These sculptures are in the shape of horses, sheep, and dogs. There are other pottery items dating back to 5500 BC. There are also many pieces of pottery items that date back to 55 to 4000 BC. Erbil is now the capital of Iraq's semi-autonomous Kurdish region. It is one of the most ancient cities of the world, dating back to around 7000 BC. That's 9,000 years ago. So is that when these guys built? The symbols, pay attention to the symbols. So there you have it, another bit of information in another magazine, a Nexus. So I have a little more. The Twilight Zone, an interview with Zachariah Stitchins. By Penola Loyopizzi Harris. We might have reviewed this in a previous video, but it might be worth it to review it again. Scholars have traveled the entire world looking for historic artifacts and documents as evidence that possibly humankind could have been seeded by alien races. I'm just reading parts of this. This interview was on May 5th, 2003, a time when many people had questions about the ransacking of the National Museum of Iraq. See what I'm saying? Something bigger afoot here, maybe? And the possible return of the planet Nibiru. Do they have a steerable planet? Are these Anunnaki entities coming back? Have they communicated to mankind, the leaders, of the conditions upon their return? And that it's intolerable to have 7 billion people on the planet, and that many of us have to be fumigated, gotten rid of. Like pest control companies sky spraying us. Are these things coming back? Are they interdimensional entities which can possess people, politicians? Do they have a slave race of beings that work for them? A lot of people who were abducted describe these things. And then, of course, they're doing the abductions and breeding them, and then later re-abducting the women and showing them their offspring. What's going on? Alright, so Mr. Stitchin tells, based on his interpretations of the ancient Sumerian clay tablets, they say that he was really a working hand for the CIA. So are they creating these whole stories of a plausible creation by these creatures of humans? Is it a fabricated story? And if so, why? Why would they have us believe that? And why do they arrest people now and persecute and prosecute people preaching Christianity, taking all the Christianity out of our city squares, and now, like in Oklahoma and other places, putting up satanic statues of demon-like creatures? You have to put the whole thing together in context. They don't do one thing and the other thing. They're all related, in my opinion. Alright, the Sumerians wrote the story of humankind on clay tablets 6,000 years ago in what is now Iraq. So, the Younger Dryas years goes back 10,000 years after the big event, according to these charts. So 8,000 years ago they wrote this history on clay tablets. Interesting. Why did they do that? They knew that the sun is the center of a planetary system, and they knew of planets that we have just discovered in the last 150 years, including Pluto in 1930. The key to the mystery lies in the planet that once orbited between Mars and Jupiter, but which does not exist today. In its place lies an asteroid belt, one which they, the Kuiper belt, which they think is a planet that got smashed with the return of some other comets or second sun in our solar system, some kind of interaction. The Sumerians called this planet Nibiru. Look up Nibiru on YouTube. Look at the many videos they say is coming. Sometimes this March or this September, they're now saying in 2015. And I wonder about the preparations in the last 10, 20 years, underground cities. How long have they known something is up? Or are they planning to create the system with the HARP systems and turn the planet on its side on purpose? Can they? Do they have the technologies? Is the moon inhabited on the other side? Is there some big event planned? So the key to the mystery lies in a planet that once orbited between Mars and Jupiter. Doesn't exist today, but there is an asteroid belt. The Sumerians called the planet Nibiru, and it is represented in ancient writings and art. This invader planet has a 36-year elliptical retrograde orbit around our sun like an asteroid. So it returns every 3,600 years, according to this. Although on these charts, I wonder about that. Maybe returning our way was written on clay tablets. So I could read all this to you. The use of nuclear weapons in 2024 BC, 4,000 years, and the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. First of all, the significance of it relates to the more general bothering question, why are there wars on earth now? Is man born a warrior, or did someone teach us to make war? The answer is the latter. Before the wars of man, there were the wars of the gods. It was during the conflict between Horus and Seth, according to unambiguous Egyptian text, that humans were given arms and enlisted to fight. Horus would be the eye on the dollar bill. That's his symbol. On the side of Horus at that time. And so it was that in the conflict between the two clans of the Anunnaki, nuclear weapons were used to wipe out the spaceport at Sinai, an event reflected in the biblical tale of Sodom and Gomorrah. So-called Wars of the Kings of Genesis, chapter 14. The nuclear cloud from the explosion in the Sinai was carried by the winds eastward to Mesopotamia. And numerous lamentation texts described how the evil wind, the nuclear cloud, killed all life in summer. The cities and buildings remained intact. People and animals and plants died. So that's what they say happened in the Middle East. And supposedly that could be another reason why Marduk left for the Scandinavia, the Germanic area where they started the Norse mythology with Odin and Thor, to get away from the toxic radiation clouds. Anunnaki opposed to Marduk, the instigator of the war, considered that to be a manifestation of destiny and accepted Marduk's supremacy. So there's more to read, but you're getting the gist of the story. One more Nexus magazine reference to this. I have a big pile of them, and I just went through there looking for something to match this book review. Ancient texts reveal alien intervention in our history. This is the 2011 issue, so there just seems to be a lot of this kind of material put out there. Again, is it meant to deceive us? To create a new storyline? And get rid of the Jesus Christ Christianity storyline? The New World Order, the New Age? Who wrote the reptilian agenda? Alright, so let's see, this would be by John Lash. I think I have one of his books. The Nag Hammadi Codexes and the Mesopotamian cuneiform tablets both tell of alien intervention with humanity. Now, not too many people can interpret those clay tablets, so is there some nefarious fake story plot being played out there for us people to digest and believe? Planet Nibiru is coming. Would this explain why the government is building underground cities, FEMA camps, and selling hollow point bullets to the post office people? Killing and murdering all the Middle East Arabs, overthrowing the elected president in the Ukraine, putting in the puppet, days later shipping all the gold from the Ukraine to New York, the so-called global warming scares, which don't add up. They got equipment that they can make and change the weather at will. HARP systems. They're sky spraying us every day. Go outside and look. With that in mind, let me move on here to who wrote the reptilian agenda. Are they among us? Are they our leaders right now? Are they operating in secret right in front of us every day? Do they know who they are? Do they think that they're divine? Does he look like he thinks he's divine? Got the crown on his head or something. There was one of the UFO books, videos on YouTube. One man spent some serious time with the Robert Dean, I think it was, with the aliens out west. And he said, if you go near their children, they will get vicious and kill you. They're very protective of their species, like a mama bear for her cubs. Interesting. So the Nag Hammadi Library are actually the oldest examples we have of leather-bound books. Who wrote the reptilian agenda? Gnostics as teachers of the ancient mysteries. This would be the Freemasons, Illuminati, and they got the big G on there with the compass and the square. That's the Gnostics. Were deeply concerned with the alien intrusion upon humankind. Well, if you read Morals and Dogma, talks about the Palladians, Syrians. I looked up one thing here. Page 551. Just scoot over to this for 1 second. Morals and Dogma. The Scalvano-Vendes typified the Trinity, like in Christianity, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, by the three heads of God, Triglav, and the Prusai or Prusians by the triune God, Procune, Procilius, Protempius, the deities of light. I'm going to get to the point here real quick. And thunder of hell and the earth is fruits, its fruits and animals, and the Scandinavians by Odin, Freya, and Thor. So this stuff is in Morals and Dogma. The top of this page here that I have highlighted. Says right there on the top, second line down, Scandinavian, Odin, Frey, and Thor. So I am connecting the dots. I'm not trying to go off into left field. It's in Albert Pike's Freemasonic Bible. There's more references in here to when we've reviewed some of that with the Palladians and Isis and Osiris and Horus. So the ancients are in there. These people. The ancient hieroglyphs on the Egyptian buildings. These people. The all-seeing eye on the U.S. dollar. Horus. The pyramid, Egyptian. It's all right there for anybody to see. Alright, so the Gnostics as teachers in the ancient mysteries were called and deeply concerned with the alien intrusion upon humankind. Entities, as they called archeons, appeared to be identical to the extraterrestrials, ETs, of modern ufology. The codexes indicate both reptilian and gray types. So the codex is the most ancient leather-bound documented books library in the world ever. Talks about the grays and the reptilians. By the way, these Nexus magazines, you can go on their website, and for $40 or $50, you can get a disc with all the issues, and apparently they're all indexed, so you can type in keywords and get related articles for your research. An interesting read. This stuff here, this non-fiction, archaeological mythology research is more interesting than fiction. Any kind of murder novel. Can't touch it. Touch this stuff, in my opinion. It's just beyond imagination. Fascinating. The codexes indicate both reptilian and gray types, a draconic type and a neonate type suggested by the image of premature born fetuses. The former are overlords, the latter servile robotic drones who obey a hive mentality. So these people are the leaders, apparently. And these are the drone type worker bees, the grays, like that movie E.T., where they try to make them seem so nice and benign. And they, behind the scenes, they're controlling mankind. Is this true? and they're everywhere in our society. And according to my research, far be it for me to use my brain, but anybody who's anybody famous from my research is involved in this stuff, and the Freemasons and stuff. As much as I don't want to admit it, my favorite movie star, one of them, John Wayne, was a Masonic type. So if you're in these Illuminati Freemasonry sites, lodges, and you join them and swear and make a deal with the devil, Satan, Lucifer, apparently you too can be John Wayne. Perhaps 1/5 of the intelligible material in the NHC, the NAGHAG main library, concerns the origin, methods, and motives of the Archeons, also called authorities and governors. These bizarre entities may be regarded as a locust-like species of cyborgs with silicon-based bodies so designed to permit only brief forays into the Earth's oxygen-rich atmosphere. They inhabit the solar system at large, traveling among the planets in alien-engineered spacecraft. Some, but not all, UFO sightings, abductions may be attributed to them. Although Archeons do physically exist, the real danger they pose to humanity is not invasion of the planet, but invasion of the mind. I was watching a YouTube video today on the alien reptilian agenda, and apparently these spiritual beings also, part of their medical sciences is they abduct humans and kill humans on the operating table. And at that exact moment of death, when the human spirit leaves the body, in slips one of these alien spirits, taking over the human body. So it looks like the same person, talks like the same person, but inside is a different spirit. And apparently, according to this video I watched on YouTube this morning, they perfected that science on Earth today. So you makes you wonder, who are the people ruling us? Was the original person somebody else, and has another entity been inserted into that body? We know that when John Kennedy announced that there is a secret group of people controlling things behind the scenes, then he was going to expose it. Within days, he was murdered. That's a fact. So Archeons do physically exist. The real danger they pose to humanity is not invasion on the planet, but invasion of the mind. Why do they want to microchip everybody, and why are they using TV to mind control everybody? People watch stuff on TV, and the news and stuff is put out there, so it's so believable. People believe it. Morons, zombies. They just you meet them at the grocery store, and they will tell you verbatim what they heard in the news. And I want to grab them and shake them and say, "Wake up, wake up." That's not true. Just because they said it. They're telling you now that in our previous book reviews here, that they don't want people to get married and have children naturally, only by artificial insemination. And that's supposedly part of the, besides the satanic relationships of decadent sex, which apparently is part of the satanic rituals they do at the Bohemian Grove, where our presidents have been photographed. Men in long robes, and they ship in gay men and have a satanic ritual. New York City, Aleister Crowley did this. In the Jewish Zionist books written by rabbis exposing this stuff of the Luciferian worshippers, Jewish men were told to have their neighbor come over and have sex with their wife while they watched, and it was supposed to make them turn into a genius. Controlling the spiritual powers. And apparently there is the good and the bad, and if you want to please Lucifer and Satan's satanical spirits, they will reward you and help you, and they control our stock market in the world, and the banks and the countries, and the nuclear weapons, and the biological plagues, and the laboratories, and the FEMA camps, and the bullets, and the weapons being shipped to our police departments these days to look like German stormtroopers. Who's ruling the world? I just read books. It says it right here. They infect our imagination and use the power of make-believe for deception and confusion. Their pleasure is in deceit for its own sake without a particular aim and purpose. They are robotic in nature, incapable of independent thought or choice, and they have no particular agenda except to live vicariously through human beings. Who wrote the reptilian agenda? So it does make it suspect to me when I have done reviewing this book. You know, why did somebody publish this? Were they seeking the truth, or is this guy part of the Illuminati? Well, on that note, I got some interesting news. If I can find it here. I like buying used books at used book sites on the internet. You never know what you're going to find when you get the book. This book, Flying Serpents and Dragons, was written by R.A. Boulay. This letter is signed by R.A. Boulay. So I thought I'd read it to you. Look at the dragon up on the top of this letterhead. October 29, 1999, Clearwater, Florida. Henry, Laurel, Maryland, MD. Dear Harry, just received your letter with the edited copy of my article on the Phoenix. Sorry you had so much trouble locating me. My new address is in the Phoenix Society Directory. Well, the Rising of the Phoenix. That's the eagle on the dollar bill, and on the Masonic lodges everywhere are the two-headed birds. And see the crown and the pyramid and the rays. And it says New World Order below that. This is the Masonic book, Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike, who, by the way, was in contact with a spirit guide where he got all this material to write this biblical type book for the Freemasons. So the guy who wrote this book, it is my suggestion, is probably into the occultic groups also, and wrote this book for consumption. And I'm just wondering, are they trying to recreate history? Is it a true history? What is really going on? Or is it a history they want the people to know before they announce the coming of the reptilians and Nibiru? Sorry you had so much trouble locating me. My new address is in the Phoenix Society Directory. So he's part of the Phoenix Society. Look up the Rising of the Phoenix. And in my previous video, didn't I mention Eurovision, which is the same thing as the American Idol singing program? Eurovision. They have one in Europe, Eurovision. We have American Idol. And Conchita Wurst won the contest. Conchita's head was the head of Jesus with the hair and the beard, and the body was of a slender woman in a silky dress. Conchita Wurst. Conchita is a female part, Wurst is a sausage. Need I explain it? Anyways, Conchita Wurst sings the song The Phoenix Rising, wins the Eurovision contest, and in the words are in the song The Phoenix Rising, the words are, "You can't stop us." So think about 911, Sandy Hook, where the guy in the background's doing the devil sign, and the national TV newscaster there is holding up a picture of the owl, which is at the Bohemian Grove that they throw a child into during a satanic ritual. So anyways, this guy is a member of the Phoenix Society. I had completely forgotten all about it. It was over 2 years ago. I included it as a chapter in my book, Flying Serpents and Dragons, which came out in early 1990. Sending you a copy of the book, since there may be some additional information in the Phoenix, on the Phoenix, and therefore you can use in your article rather than cross-reference it, my early article. Much has transpired since then. I've been preoccupied with the second book, trying to get it out to the printers by Thanksgiving Day for publication next year. So Harry, I'll leave the final editing of the Phoenix article to you. You've done a good job, editorial job thus far. I know it's in capable hands. Thank you for your continued interest, Harry. All the work you've done on the article, I look forward to seeing it published. R.A. Boulay. So I found that in the back of the book, in the used bookstore, and I find a lot of interesting stuff in some of these used books I buy. So with that said, I'm going to skim through this really quick and just show you the names of the chapters. The Old Testament begins at summer. Chapter 4. Some pictures. The Serpent Gods and Immortality. So I think you got the gist of this here and how it relates to our the reality we live in right now. What is going on? They got a chart here with the lineages of the years of the people in historic in our Bible and stuff. Were these people related to these Anunnaki beings, dragons and serpent gods in world mythology? A lot of people who know mythology remember seeing lions with human heads and horses with human heads and other kinds of creatures. Were they into DNA clone manipulation? The Hindu epics and the serpent gods, so it's in the Hindu religion with all the dragons. You've seen them in China. And a lot of the Egyptian hieroglyphics have the snakes and the beings and the stars, the Pleiades system up there. See that? So he does a really good job convincingly. The patriots, the leaders of old, demigods in the antediluvian period. The crime of Cain, Cain's label in the Bible, apparently not only to commit fratricide, but also to eat the flesh and blood of his brother. So did Cain, being a dragon person, eat his brother? That's what it says here, page 121. So go get this book. Here's an interesting page. Goes all the way back to Abraham, 2167 BC. Goes back right up to Christ's birth. Who's who and who was born in the years, in the history. So the Bible is just a rewriting of the ancient religious stories. And the tablets are there and the monuments are there to tell the story. Have these people interpreted all this ancient stuff fairly, correctly, with good intentions or evil intentions? Was Noah's Ark a saucer-shaped submersible? The coastal cities of Lebanon, the short history of Dalmud, the city. Lebanon becomes the new Garden of Eden. The space city established at Baalbek by Enki. Makes you wonder, what really happened back then? What's the truth? Who were these people? Are they aliens? Are they here now? So we've touched on this, and we're going to touch on it again because I'm going to finish reading that Zachariah Stitchin's book I got in the mail recently. So that'll be almost like a complete review again from another author. Is there really a missing link? Did these aliens create humans? Are the leadership of our planet really in disguise? Some kind of alien DNA? And here's Ishtar. Look at her feet. What's really true in our history? Why would her feet look like that? Or is she a hybrid? Ishtar. So this is how they portray her now. This was on a vase, an ancient vase. Look at the wings behind her back. Ishtar and Marduk. Why is Ishtar always standing on a lion and naked? The Ishtar ring. Why the skulls? Like George Bush's skull and bones and the other witchcraft and Kabbalah. Who's really running the ship here on this planet? The planet Earth, the big ship going through space. Here's Ishtar here. Look at the thorn crown on her head. Is that not the Statue of Liberty? And here we got Marduk. Just saying, something's interesting. Something's either true. There's plenty of books on abductions. Plenty of books describing the people who abducted them. Reptilian-looking people in long cloaks. Tall, 15 feet tall. Anyway, so I'm finished with this. I didn't obviously do it all. Got up to 3 chapters. Get the book. Read it. Decide for yourself. I'm trying to find out what the heck is going on planet Earth in the United States. The people behind the scenes running things. Why they're going to try to give us Jeb Bush as another Bush for president. Probably against Hillary. They must think that we are really brainless zombie humans to even suggest these things. But apparently it's going to be a reality. And people are going to fall for it and be strong Republicans and strong Democrats and support Hillary and support Jeb. Who's really running things? And they must be laughing at the stupid humans. And is the Younger Dryas coming back, an ice age or something? Not global warming. If they say one thing, you can bet it's the opposite. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Rick Miracle reporting. Thank you for watching my videos.